In a climate-controlled vault at Yale University, there is a book that has defeated every codebreaker who has ever tried to read it. Not amateur codebreakers, professional ones. Military cryptographers who cracked Nazi ciphers during World War II. Modern computer scientists running artificial intelligence models. All of them, for over 100 years, have failed to translate a single confirmed sentence. It's called the Voynich Manuscript, and it's roughly 240 pages of handwriting in an alphabet that doesn't match any known language, living or dead. It's filled with illustrations of plants that don't seem to exist in nature, diagrams of stars and zodiac symbols, and strange scenes of nude women bathing in green liquid inside plumbing-like structures. Nobody knows what it says. Nobody is even entirely sure what it's for. This is Archive of the Ancients, and today we're opening the most famous unreadable book in the world. Let's start with what science can actually prove, because that part is more solid than you might expect. In 2009, researchers at the University of Arizona radiocarbon dated 4 separate samples of the manuscript's vellum. That's the treated animal skin the book is written on. The results were remarkably consistent. All 4 samples dated the parchment to between 1404 and 1438 AD, squarely in the early 15th century. That single test eliminated a huge number of old theories in one stroke. It ruled out the idea that 13th century English scientist Roger Bacon wrote it, since he died more than a century before this parchment even existed. It also killed the popular claim that Leonardo da Vinci was involved. Radiocarbon dating tells us when the animal whose skin became the parchment died, not necessarily the exact year someone put pen to page. But researchers point out there's no evidence anyone stockpiled unused 15th century parchment for decades before writing on it, and the ink and pigments used are entirely consistent with materials available in that era. So most specialists now treat the early 1400s as the manuscript's most likely time of creation. As for where it was made, the evidence increasingly points toward northern Italy. Stylistic details in the illustrations, things like clothing, castle battlements, and artistic conventions, closely resemble northern Italian manuscripts from that same window of time. Recent research syntheses converge on somewhere in 15th century northern or central Italy as the most likely production context, though the exact city remains disputed. Now let's talk about what's actually inside it, because the manuscript is usually broken down by scholars into several sections. There's an herbal section with drawings of plants, most of which don't correspond to any real known species. There's an astronomical section with circular diagrams resembling zodiac charts. There's a biological section, the strangest of all, full of naked women bathing in green pools connected by tubes and plumbing-like structures. There's a section that looks like recipes or pharmaceutical instructions. And there's a long final section of dense, uninterrupted text with no illustrations at all, which researchers have nicknamed the recipes or stars section. The writing system itself is called Voynich by researchers, and it has around 20 to 30 distinct characters, some resembling Latin letters, some entirely unique. Statistical analysis has shown that Voynich behaves like a real language in some ways. Word lengths, letter frequency patterns, and even something resembling Zipf's law, the statistical pattern found in real human languages, have all been detected in it. A 2013 study by Marcello Montemoro found distinct linguistic structure in the text, which some researchers argue makes a meaningless hoax less likely.
So what actually happened to this book after it was made? Its documented history starts murky and gets a little clearer over time. The first confirmed owner we know of is George Barish, an alchemist in 17th century Prague, and later it passed to Johannes Marcus Marci, a Prague physician, sometime in the 1660s. Multispectral imaging published in 2024 uncovered faint marks suggesting Marci himself may have attempted an early decoding effort on the manuscript. Before that, tradition holds that the manuscript was once owned by Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia, who purchased it for a huge sum, believing it to be the work of Roger Bacon, though that specific chain of ownership is based on later correspondence and isn't fully verified. The manuscript then disappears from clear historical record for over 2 centuries, likely sitting in a Jesuit college library until 1912, when a Polish-American antique book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich purchased a collection of old manuscripts from the Villa Mondragone near Rome and recognized this particular volume as something extraordinary. It's been known by his name ever since. Today, it belongs to Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. Now the theories, because this is where things get genuinely divided, even among serious researchers. The first theory is that it's an actual cipher, real language, encrypted using a system we haven't cracked yet. Proponents point to the statistical language-like patterns in the text as evidence that there's real meaning hiding underneath a substitution system or a more complex code. Some have proposed it encodes Latin, Italian, or even a mix of medieval languages using an unusual cipher method. The second theory is that it's an invented or constructed language, what's sometimes called a philosophical language, an attempt by its creator to design an entirely new symbolic writing system, similar to how some scholars in that era experimented with universal or artificial languages. Under this theory, the text isn't a cipher hiding another language. It may actually be gibberish generated by a structured method, which would still explain the statistical patterns without there being a real hidden message at all. The third theory, and one some historians take seriously, is that the manuscript could be an elaborate hoax, possibly created specifically to be sold to a wealthy, gullible buyer. Emperor Rudolph II was known to pay enormous sums for occult curiosities, so a clever forger producing a fake mystical text for profit isn't far-fetched. But this theory has to explain the linguistic statistical patterns, the consistency of the handwriting across 240 pages, and the fact that producing that much fake text convincingly by hand would itself have required enormous effort. Eamon Duffy has noted that the sheer amount of unused parchment required makes a later forgery essentially inconceivable, further reinforcing the medieval non-hoax origin. There's also a more recent and slightly wilder theory proposed by Jules Yannick and Arthur Tucker, who argued, based on identifying certain plants and the presence of what they interpreted as a map of central Mexico, that the manuscript was actually composed in the Americas between 1562 and 1572, decades after the radiocarbon-dated parchment was made. This theory has not gained wide acceptance among mainstream Voynich researchers, largely because it conflicts with the parchment dating and the strongly European artistic style, but it illustrates just how far apart expert opinions on this book really are. As of right now, in 2026, no theory has been proven or disproven with certainty.
Researchers, cryptographers, and computer scientists using modern AI language models continue to publish new decoding attempts nearly every year, and so far, every single one has failed to produce a translation that other experts accept as valid. What makes the Voynich Manuscript different from most unsolved mysteries is that we're not missing evidence. We have the actual physical object, dated, analyzed, photographed page by page in high resolution, freely available online for anyone to study. The mystery isn't what happened to it. The mystery is what's inside a book that has physically existed untouched for 600 years. So here's the question we'll leave you with. Is there a real message locked inside those 240 pages, waiting for the right mind or the right machine to finally unlock it? Or did some clever hand 6 centuries ago craft the most convincing nonsense in history? Let us know your theory in the comments below. If you like unraveling mysteries that modern science still can't fully explain, subscribe to Archive of the Ancients. New episodes every week.